Welcome to the second episode of my Masters in the USA. Today we start a new academic year at UND, and I'm very excited to start this year making the second episode with Dr. Ingo. And this episode I want to discuss a little bit about pedal tones. So let's get started. So, Dr. Ingo, what is pedal tones and which are the benefits of practicing pedal tones in our playing?
Well, first of all, I want to say what a great thing it is that you're doing here to share the information that you're gaining here at UND and here in the States and sharing it with your friends in Brazil. I think it's fantastic for you to think of doing that and think of just, again, sharing. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
And I think the question is, what are pedal tones? And pedal tones are just the notes that are below the lowest practical note of the trumpet, which is low F sharp. That's where you run out of valves, right? And the notes below there are also called false tones because they don't really exist in the trumpet, but they carry such great benefits learning how to do them.
So, what are the benefits? Because we generally don't play this kind of notes in a regular music.
Right.
So why should we practice something that we don't play?
Right. That's such a great question because you have just hit on the fundamental issue with the pedal tones, and in particular pedal C, as it relates to the overtone series. You know, we learned that the overtone series has a fundamental. The next note, the next partial is an octave above. The next partial is a fifth, and then a fourth, and then a major third, and then a minor third, etc. So the fundamental note is a real note. In trumpet, if we play the lowest possible note on trumpet, open valve, it's a low C, right? So you play. Then the next possible note above that is a G. Well, that's a fifth. So we're talking about starting from the second overtone. So what I just played for you is the second and third overtone.
Yes, we are missing the first one.
We're missing the first one. Other instruments don't miss the first. But we miss the first one because we never see that note in music. To me, I don't think there is such a thing as a pedal C. I think it's a real C. It's a real note. It's a note that should be mastered because it exists on the trumpet. And when we learn to start playing the trumpet from the second and third and fourth partials, we are missing the very fundamental spot whereby everything can grow. Everything on trumpet grows from that pedal C, everything good. The right alignment, the right air, everything that you learn. So just to sum everything up, we're missing the pedal C, and because of that, it creates problems with many, many players. We never play it in music. We never play it in band. But the note exists on the instrument, so we must learn how to play it as a real note.
So physically speaking, how it changes in our body to practice pedal tones? What happens when we are practicing pedal tones that change, that put us in this right position you're talking about?
You're my student. I can tell. That's exactly the right question. And you do change things, but you let the pedal register dictate what those changes are. And you use the only gauge that you have to know whether it's right or wrong. And that's this. This is the only gauge we have. We don't have something that, you can like put there with a gauge that shows, okay, well, this is the needle goes to there, so that's your air. And you don't need that. You need your ears. And that's what will tell you whether or not there's a change that's been made and whether or not it's good. And you need to make changes depending on what it is, and that's why teaching in the applied area and teaching trumpet is very difficult. I love it, because it's so different for each person. The things that I speak to you about are completely different from what I speak to my other students about. You have a particular set of strengths and weaknesses, and we sort of flush those out. We ferret them out. You know what a ferret? It's an animal. You flush them out, all right? And you do that by playing in that register. Whatever your issue is, that's what would happen. And it requires a different approach to the instrument. You set your body up different. We can talk about that, and I mentioned it already. It's really either alignment or it's air.
And what you define as alignment?
Alignment?
Yeah, what is alignment for you?
Right. Alignment is basically vertical alignment. Vertical alignment is just here, how you put the instrument on. To say it in a nutshell, because we're not going to make this a long master class, we just want to give some information to get started with your friends. Alignment must go in this direction. It can't go in this direction. Here's what I mean. So you have diaphragmatic area, you have tongue and oral cavity, you have lips, and then you have the trumpet. You can say that in the opposite direction, and if I set up this way, it will not work. Watch this, watch. Right? It doesn't work because you're using the instrument to form the alignment. You must set up your body first to receive the instrument. So, right? That's correct. All this is an amplifier. So this doesn't help you, right? You can't do this. You can't move your instrument. So you really want to try to do the right alignment. That's where in the stamp book, when we talk about buzzing, some people, some teachers might think, well, buzzing is not a good thing because it makes everything close. But the interesting thing about the stamp is that he doesn't advocate that you buzz when you play. Buzzing simply gains you the correct alignment, right? A lot of students, even my students sometimes at a college level, cannot do that efficiently, easily.
So when practicing pedal tones, some students can play the pedal C in an open position. So
Right.
sometimes I can play it using the fingerings, 1, 2, 3, but I can play in an open position. So
Right.
what do you think about this? Should the students continue practicing the pedal tones using the fingerings, or should the students look for playing the pedal C without the fingerings?
Yeah. Yeah, certainly it's a great way to bridge the gap between actually playing the pedal C pitch or not, and by doing it 1, 2, and 3, and then playing it open, which is ultimately the goal. You want to play the pedal C open because that's what tells you whether or not you are playing in the slot. And so in the meantime, if a student is having difficulty with it, yeah, just bend the 1, 2, and 3, because what that does is that lengthens the trumpet and allows you to play just a little bit lower. When you lift those valves, all of a sudden the trumpet gets shorter, but yet you're wanting to play lower. So that's okay to do. It's okay to just play 1, 2, and 3. I'll show you. You can just use 1, 2, and 3, and then eventually you want to sort of find the kind of air that would make it to where it doesn't matter whether you're playing 1, 2, and 3 or open. It's all in there. It's all the same.
So as a student, I always heard that if you play low notes, you can play high notes.
Correct.
And most of the professors that I've known, they said you should practice pedal tones to develop your high registers.
Correct.
So how the pedal tones can help me to develop the high register?
I'll show you and then I'll tell you. And it's a very simple thing. Here's a high C. Right? Now that is a high C. And it's not going to be able to translate over the video. But it's not correct. Everything is closed, you see. You see? So what happens is that if you want to play higher, you have to start from a position that's more open. So da dee dee dee, or da 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 dee, da 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 dee. It affects my voice. It'll affect the trumpet. And I don't know if this will translate, but here's what it sounds like in trumpet, because I play trumpet much better than I sing. Right? So I'm making the aperture smaller. That's what we do. We squeeze this together and it starts a vicious cycle. Squeeze this together, you have to blow harder. If you blow harder, you have to squeeze together. It makes you have no endurance, makes you have no flexibility. But if you think about moving the pitches, as we do in the Stamp or the Thompson book, you know, this, if you move the pitches and try to stay relatively open as if you're playing into the pedals. So if you stay in that position, it's much easier to play because you're using larger groups of muscles, right? And the sound is much better, right?
Yes. So, if I'm not wrong, pedal tones is all about to find the right position.
Correct.
So if you can play the pedal C, it just tells you that everything in your body, especially your embouchure and everything here, is in the right position. So my question is, as you move to the high register, what maintains the same and what changes? Or everything changes?
Yeah, it's the compression. The compression changes, but the balance stays the same. It, again, will not be translated over the video, but I'm going to pull my hands away from each other. So I'm pulling. You probably can see that, right? I'm releasing and I'm pulling, but where are my hands? They're perfectly balanced right here. Okay? And when we play trumpet, if you blow harder, you do this. And if you squeeze your lips or resist more, you do that. So the balance stays the same, but the compression changes. I'm exaggerating that. You don't do it that much. But the compression changes. But you have to continue to maintain the balance.
Okay, so just to summarize, playing the pedal C, it puts yourself in the right position, and you need to maintain this position of the pedal C when you're traveling around the instrument. And what's gonna make the change is the air support you're using.
It's close. You're close, but it's the compression that you have to really focus on as you're practicing. So you don't start blowing harder because you think you're playing higher. You have to blow harder. And that's the mentality, but you really don't, right? Because in the pedals, you tell me, what does the pedal teach you about your air?
It tells me that if I blow hard, it's not going to work. I need to back up a little bit and then find the right spot.
That's absolutely correct. That's right. But when you start playing, or anyone starts playing the pedals, what's the first thing that they learn? Oh, I'm blowing. What? You tell me.
Yeah, we blow hard.
We blow too hard. And I got to tell you, there's not a lot of air that can go through that hole, right? So the harder you blow, the more it backs up, right? And then your eyeballs pop out, and then that's it, right?
Yeah.
Can you translate that?
I will try my best.
So if you go... See, the last note sounds much better than the first note. And then if you extend that a little bit, you've got all that power, and it's really not any effort. It's not any effort. The only effort that you have to engage in is to create the compression in your body. Set your body up to play, and then put the horn up, and it's an amplifier.
Okay.
Right.
So this is a lot of information, and I think it's a good start, especially talking about one of the things that are most important on practicing trumpet and playing trumpet. So I hope everybody gets a clue about what is happening here. I will do my best to translate this because it's a lot of information. And if you still have any questions or doubt, please send me an email. I will be really happy to answer and work with you guys about this topic that is really important for us. Thank you again, Dr. Ronnie Ingo, for this interview, and I hope for the next episode.
My pleasure. Thank you.